Hello and welcome to News 9. I'm Aditya Raj Kaul and this is the Diplomat. India and Sweden bilateral ties go as far as the India's independence. In fact, the pillars of India-Sweden relationship are based on sustainability, innovation and green transition. How are these relationships now transitioning into this new era of the ties between the two countries? And of course, what are the two countries doing on green transition and beyond? Joining me is Jan Thesleff, the Ambassador of Sweden to India. Thank you very much for joining me here at the beautiful Sweden Embassy. To begin with, how has your experience been like here in India? I believe you've just completed 2 years.
I've just completed 2 years in India this time, but I've been coming and going to India for the past 31 years.
Okay.
So somehow this is the peak of my India experience. It's been a fantastic journey for 2 years. India is a country that keeps us busy.
Yeah.
The most populous country, very strong economic growth, etc.
Yeah.
So I've been spending these 2 years discovering, building my networks, traveling across the country.
Yeah.
And it's not only about politics, it's not only about business, it's also about culture.
Yes.
People to people, discovering and rediscovering sometimes some of the places I saw already 31 years ago.
Yeah.
And seeing the changes in India, seeing how India is transformed.
Yeah. 31 years is a long time. Any favorite destinations in India? Any food that you in particular like?
India is more than a country. When you travel across India, it's like traveling across a continent somehow. I don't feel any need to travel abroad because there's so much to discover in this country. Of course, all the sites that I think that we are all mesmerized by, to go to the Taj Mahal, to go to Udaipur, to go to Jaipur, to go to the south, see the beauty of Kerala, Kolkata. I love Kolkata, by the way. I was there just a few weeks ago.
Okay.
A cultural capital in a way of India. So all these things together, food is one part of it, music is another part, see how we can build something, new bridges, cultural bridges between Sweden and India is something always on my mind. When I eat Indian food, I always think, how can we have a fusion between our cuisine and yours? Because that's actually how you build the cultural bridges.
That's true. And might I ask, have you tried your hand in Hindi? Any bits out there?
Honestly, yes, I recorded some small messages in Hindi.
Yes.
But I must admit that I learned them by heart.
Yes.
So my Hindi knowledge is very limited.
But certainly you will get there,
Sure.
Ambassador. But coming to the brass tacks, how do you describe the current relationship between India and Sweden? And in your tenure in the last 2 years, how has this relationship really broadened?
We have now more than 75 years of diplomatic relations.
Of course.
And I really stress diplomatic relations because our relationship with India, between two countries, between companies, between people, go much further than that. We have Swedish companies that are in India, are here established since 120 plus years.
Wow.
So it's really, a long time relationship. Diplomatic, 75 years.
Right.
I would say that we have never had as good relations as we have today.
Right.
And not only deep, but also very broad. And I see it my task to broaden those relations even more. Stable relations stand on many different legs somehow.
True.
And we are seeing how the number of Indians that are coming to Sweden growing, the number of Swedish companies coming to India growing. We see political contacts. I've had 7 cabinet ministers visiting. We are planning for even more visits next year. So things are moving. Somehow I think that the heritage of Sweden, if you put it that way, and the ambitions of India are matching.
Well, that is indeed a big and a deep statement that you made. But Ambassador, I have more questions on trade, on bilateral ties. But why don't you take the seat?
Absolutely.
And we'll take the conversation forward.
Thank you.
Please. Ambassador, clean tech and innovation are two basic pillars of the relationship. And in any way, it's a no-brainer that this is the future. How does Sweden look at investments, particularly in India, in these areas?
As you say, I think that green transition is a survival issue.
Yes.
It is a survival issue for us, for the world, and also for India. And what we have had since a very long time, we've had industry, academia, private enterprise diving into green tech. But we are a country of 10 million people. Many of the technologies, many of the experience that we have had, to have a real effect on the climate, effect on the economy, effect on people's lives, you need to scale them up. India has been searching for this kind of input from other countries, and actually I think that the marriage between us when it comes to this is a very good one. We find the possibilities to scale up within heavy industries, within energy conservation, within finding even the small solutions that have a big impact. I can give you some examples. But really that is one of the key features that we have in our collaboration.
If I can also touch upon the trade aspect in this, particularly in areas of technology, in electronics, in textiles and machinery, how's the trade faring between the two countries, India and Sweden, and also in the backdrop of the larger negotiations of a free trade agreement between Europe and India? In the broader context and in the context of a bilateral ties, how do you see trade?
Our trade is constantly going upwards. We've had in the past 6 years a 50% growth of our bilateral trade. We have quite a balanced trade, a total trade exchange of 7 billion euros. Could be much more. We are working on that, but still we are happy. We have a growth of Swedish companies coming into India. Just since I came 2 years ago, we have another 40 companies. Basically 2 companies a month are establishing themselves. They are employing more than 250,000 Indians directly and 2.5 million Indians indirectly. So very healthy trade. Of course, are we happy? The answer is no. Do we see a bigger potential? The answer is yes. A free trade agreement between India and EU would open a trade potential for India and for the European Union, countries like ours, of course, that is much, much bigger than today. I would say that we could easily double the trade volume between our two regions, or India and the EU. And we are already the second biggest trade partner of your country.
Right.
So of course, when it comes to economic growth, when it comes to creating jobs in India, this will be a key factor. For us, the will to invest in India is already there. But of course, to see India as a manufacturing base, as an R&D base, not only for India but for the world, the free trade agreement will be key.
If you could also briefly touch upon the joint commission that we have on economics, industrial and technical cooperation between the two countries, how have the negotiations been so far? Do you think this is positive? And what are the key asks that Sweden really have from the Indian government?
We've had this joint commission since, I think, 51 years.
Yes.
So it's one of our oldest fora. We're having the next meeting in Sweden in the spring of 2025. So this is a forum we definitely value highly. The advantage of this forum is that we can really see the whole palette of relations. We go through all, we have it at ministerial level. So it's really from top to bottom and from bottom to top. Companies come with their input, they come with their, what are the opportunities, what are the challenges.
Right.
If you look at how Swedish companies look at the business climate in India, we've seen a strongly improved business climate. 72% of Swedish companies say that the business climate in India is very good. And actually, if you look at the increase compared to other markets in the world, I can compare it to 54 other markets that where similar surveys are made. the increase is the strongest in India. But there are challenges. There are challenges when it comes to the administrative hurdles. There are challenges when it comes to standards that are special to India. There are other challenges, but the Joint Commission and the FTA eventually is there to make a level playing field where we can sort out these issues. But the potential is there, companies see it, and the business climate is improving.
Well, that's great to know indeed, because business is indeed the basis of the relationship in many aspects. Ambassador, if I can come to something that you touched upon briefly, and that's people-to-people contact. If I can ask you about tourism between Sweden and India. I'm sure that a lot of Indians are going there, not just for work and for studies, but to travel as well.
Absolutely.
But how do you see people from Sweden coming to India as well? And what is being done to increase this two-way tourism between the two countries? Are there external agencies, individuals, organizations playing a key role, including the VFS and others?
Absolutely. I think already India as a diplomatic post where we issue visas is the post in the world for Sweden that is issuing most visas globally. So we have a huge volume. We have a volume of tourists, business travelers, and of course also when it comes to permits of those who go to study or to work. We have a community of Indians in Sweden that amounts to 70,000 people today.
Wow.
In 2030, 1% of our population will be Indian. So you see the relationship. When it comes to tourism, I think more can be done. We are working closely with the Scandinavian Tourism Board. We are working with Visit Sweden. We are working with individual travel agencies. We are working with VFS to promote tourism to Sweden. I think that many Indians have traveled a lot. They have been to many of the well-known places around the world, and they are ready to discover something new. People come to me and they want to see the Northern Lights.
Yes.
They want to see the white nights of June. They want to discover the archipelago. They want to go to the far north. And all these things I really want more and more Indians to discover. I was at a wedding the other day, and I think I convinced the family to, they were planning for the honeymoon, that they should go and discover northern Sweden. So I think that there is an appetite in India. There is a will to receive Indian visitors. It's a safe country. Right. It's a clean country. It's a country where you manage with English, and you will be guaranteed to discover something new. It's not your commonplace destination.
Right.
So the potential is there, and we are ready to exploit it.
Well, I don't need convincing, Ambassador, but I can tell you and assure you that I'm going on my honeymoon in December, and I have chosen Europe. It's not Sweden this time, but certainly it will be on the cards. And I can also tell you, Ambassador, that my father has been working in the tourism industry since last 45 years, and in particular catering to tourists from the Scandinavian countries. And there's a joke in the family that if my father goes to any of the Scandinavian countries and walks on the street, there would be somebody recognizing him, because for 45 years he's been, getting hundreds and thousands of people from all across. But Ambassador, if I can also touch upon the cultural ties now, from music to dance to art. There is, every few kilometers in India, the, complete culture, tradition, art changes. And there's so much to witness. How is art, how is soft power bringing India and Sweden together?
I think that that art is really one of the best tools to link two countries together. And we're just now planning for an engagement with India Art Fair in beginning of next year. We'll bring Swedish galleries. We hope to have an even bigger exposure in 2026. We are having art exhibitions in the fall of next year. We are working on film. We are participating in film festivals. We are very active at the different book festivals around the country. bringing Swedish children's literature, bringing more grown-up literature to India. India is such a country where people are so culturally curious. I mentioned Kolkata before,
Yes.
but there are so many other places. When I go to universities and I meet with students, they know so much about Swedish music. It's not only ABBA, it's so much more.
Yes.
They know about things that even I have not heard of.
Right.
There is an enormous potential to spread Swedish music. We have companies like Spotify, for example, that are widespread in India. They are also spreading music across this great country.
Coming to innovation and technology, one of the strongest pillars of the entire bilateral gamut of relationship. On these aspects of innovation and technology, how are we faring right now? What are the key aspects or the big takeaways in the bilateral ties right now?
We have an innovation partnership, an innovation accelerator program that dates back to 2013. That's, let's say, the basis. We've had over 250 pilots, 50 concrete projects have been put up in India. 70 companies have brought new innovations. And we see basically every other week, we see a new innovative collaboration coming about. We have an Office of Science and Technology and Innovation here at the embassy.
Yes.
One of our most active offices. And they are engaging with their Indian counterparts. It comes to mobility of researchers, mobility of innovators, Swedes coming here, Indians coming to us. We are working with Swedish and Indian companies to set up centers of excellence in India, but also to do the same in Sweden. So that's something very dynamic. And if I would like our Indian friends to associate something with us, maybe there are two things that comes to my mind. One is innovation, the other one is sustainability.
I was, in fact, Ambassador, coming to sustainability aspect, and in particular, sustainability is also one of the biggest pillars. You've been speaking about it at think tanks, at different forums. I've heard it myself. But when it comes to the UN Sustainable Development Goals,
Yes.
how is India and Sweden looking at it? How are they coming together to bring in this sustainability aspect in perhaps each and every aspect of the bilateral ties?
I would say that India and Sweden has actually, back already in 2019, when we formed the leadership group for industry transition, Lead It, which is, let's say, our main project. It has been initiated by our two prime ministers. The 2.0 version of Lead It was launched in Dubai at COP28.
Okay.
That was gathering now in Baku. And we are going to have the big stock taking in Brazil at COP30. So what is Lead It? What is the leadership group for industry transition? It's actually India and Sweden decided to focus on the biggest polluting factors in our societies. The hard to abate industries, like cement, like mining, like steel, like automotive industry, and see how can we work together with the industry leaders, Indian, Swedish, and other countries, to reduce their emissions. Because if we can reduce those emissions, we already come a big way on the, let's say, the big polluting factors of our societies. And more Indian companies are joining, more and more Swedish companies are joining, and they are joining forces to not have the zero emission goal of 2070, which is the Indian goal, but actually to aim for 2050. So to be ahead of the curve, so to say.
Yes.
And we are doing well. We have to accelerate. It's actually tomorrow. We have to accelerate even more. We have to get more actors on board, but we are on a good way. And that's, I think, is where India and Sweden can make a real difference, not only in India, not only in Sweden, but globally.
Right. Since we are speaking about innovation and sustainability, I have to ask you a very basic question. And this basic question is making news. Indians and people across the world want to understand from the people in Sweden, that how do you maintain this work-life balance? You know, everybody is talking about the work-life balance in Sweden. You know, I must admit that Indians are workaholics. Indians, in fact, spend more time in work and in office than you know, traveling or spending with family members. But what is this work-life balance in Sweden all about? What are the working hours, if I can ask you? Is it really true that people in Sweden only work for 3 or 4 days, or are very strict with their timelines?
It's not fully true, but the balance, I think, is there, and the balance thinking
Yeah.
goes back far back in time.
Okay.
Already in 1974, we had a gender neutral parental leave. So both men and women can take the equal share of the parental leave. Before it was a maternal leave. Now it's a parental leave that can be shared equally. That, I think, was one key to creating, let's say, the gender balance within the families.
Okay.
And also to enable women to join the workforce. You need to go back again maybe to the innovation side of things, because there is a Swedish way of reasoning that if you just run and you don't have the time to reflect, if you don't have the time to recharge your batteries, the quality of what you do will be suffering.
Right.
So the work-life balance is also to enable people to mature in a way, to have the time to step back a little bit. Swedes work slightly shorter hours than the OECD average. Swedes are very adamant about taking their annual leave. We have a guaranteed 4 consecutive week annual leave during the summer months.
Okay.
That's also for people to come back with strength, with creativity, and do well. And somehow, if you look at our economic development over the past 60 years, it has proven us right that you can reduce the working hours and still have an economic growth, still have a social welfare system that works. So it doesn't have to impact on what you do. It's not only running fast, but running well.
Right. Well, well said, Ambassador. I can't help but notice that you're wearing an orange band. What is the significance? Because, you know, we Indians also wear something like this, which has religious connotation. But what are you wearing, and what does this really convey?
Actually, when we are sitting here in this garden, we are in the middle of something called the 16 days of activism against violence against women. It's a UN initiative, it's a global initiative, and it's celebrated and highlighted around the world, including in India. And this is is a sign of solidarity with that movement. I talked about gender issues before, very close to our heart. And I think it's important to bring the spotlight to these issues. Wherever we are in the world, we do it in Sweden as much as we do it in India. So this is a solidarity sign.
Well, that's incredible, and I hope that the entire globe has a consensus on this, because this is one issue that touches each and every one in every country possible. But speaking about violence, you know, Ambassador, I want to ask you about the 2 simultaneous wars that are happening right now. Russia's aggression in Ukraine, we've seen countless lives being lost in the last 3 years. We've also seen in the last 1 year or more, after the terror attack in southern Israel, the activities happening in Gaza as well as in Lebanon. Of course, the positive move is the ceasefire that has been achieved between Israel and Lebanon now. But how do you see these developments right now? Also, if I can ask you bluntly, the Trump presidency, do you think that the Trump presidency will change the way these wars have been fought? Perhaps not immediately, but in the near future, there could be a possibility of a ceasefire or end and some kind of an end game?
We are seeing multiple conflicts that are surrounding us. I think the war of aggression by by Russia on Ukraine has really changed the map. It's very close to us. It's in our neighborhood. It brings back very dark memories of history in Europe. We see the impact of this war on the Ukrainians, the human suffering. Of course, human suffering on both sides
Yes.
of that issue. We have seen 65,000 Ukrainians seek refuge with us. Sweden has stood up, and I don't mean only politically, but also if you look at the public opinion, people have really gotten together in support for Ukraine. And it's an existential issue for Ukraine and an existential issue for us. So it's very much something that is close to our heart. Middle East is a little bit similar in the sense that even though it's further away geographically, it's a neighbor to Europe. On the borders of the European Union are countries like Israel, we have Palestine, we have Lebanon, etc. So it's not something that is, something very distant. And we also have a big Middle Eastern population in our country. So all these things are so close to home. Will the new American administration coming in be able to change this? I cannot answer you. I don't know. But for us, both the Europeans, Americans, India, everyone around, to take a clear position, to be engaged, and to work towards solutions to these crises is a key issue. And to get back to respecting the international legal system that have served us so well since the Second World War, and now that are being shaken and challenged. That is in the interest, I think, of everyone. A rules-based system, to get back to that and to not get away with breaking the rules.
Well, you are advocating rules-based order as any democracy should. How do you see, Ambassador, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and External Affairs Minister Jaishankar's approach when it comes to being a peacemaker, when it comes to saying that this is not an era of war and solutions cannot be found in a battlefield? India has also taken a very tough stand that many friends in the Europe did not entirely like, but India took a very independent stance that, we are in favor of peace, but we will certainly not join one axis against the other. We will condemn aggression, we will condemn terrorism by all means and aspects. We are not for violence, but we want peace and we have strategic autonomy, and that's what should be the way forward. So how do you see India as a peacemaker?
India is an emerging major power in the world. You see how India, with the G20 presidency, but also in so many other fora, so many other instances, through the trips of the Honorable Prime Minister, through the actions of Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar, you see how India is taking its rightful place on the world stage. That is something we think is extremely important. India is having a clout that it's using more and more. We have a dialogue with India, we have a political dialogue with India. We want to increase that dialogue to see how we can make our concerns heard, to listen to India and see how we together with other actors, can work towards peaceful solutions. But I think that the fact that India is having an active diplomacy through its Prime Minister, through the Foreign Minister, is something very, very positive. India is listened to. India is listened to in the global South. India is listened to by many, many actors, and to have the Indian voice is very important. We respect India. India has its own concerns also. That's every country has their own interests, but to work together with other partners, with Sweden, with the EU, with the US, etc., is key. We look forward to work closely together with the new US administration also.
Right.
We have excellent relationships with the US since decades back. It doesn't change from one administration to the other. Our aim is always to have a good, functional relationship with whoever is in power.
Well, shared values and shared interests can certainly go together when speaking about bilateral ties. But my last question to you, Ambassador, you have spent 2 beautiful years in India, but in the time ahead, maybe you are here for a year or 2 years, or I would certainly want you to spend more time in India, more than these 31 years that you've had. But what are the key milestones now? What are the key aspects of the relationship which will be a priority for you as an ambassador of Sweden in New Delhi?
What I want to achieve during my coming years, and I hope that they are more than one,
Yes.
Is to build even more on the fundamentals that we have in place. I want India to see us as their sustainability partner.
Okay.
I want India to see us as their innovation partner. And I want to be inspired by India and to inspire India. From our point of view, we can share our experiences, we can share what we have achieved. It's for India to adopt it if they see it fit.
Yes.
And the other thing I want to achieve is to build on the people-to-people relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We want to have more Indians coming to us, people doing their postgraduate studies, people coming for tourism, Indian companies investing in key sectors that are important to India. We already have 70 companies with us. I want to double and triple that while I'm here. But all these things come together. They are not in one, compartment here, one there and one there. They are all together. So if I can do as much as I can of this while I'm here, I will be a happy ambassador.
Well, Ambassador, on that note, it was a pleasure having you on this show. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining The Diplomat. Thank you.